it is not an easy journey. It is a journey that you have to be intentional about taking. It is a commitment that you have to go someplace deep that you didn't even know existed, like this divine trust that this too shall pass. It has to get better than this.
Welcome to Women Thrive podcast. This is where you'll get to hear incredible stories of female entrepreneurs, business owners, women from all walks of life. Myself, Raymond Jan, and my co-host Abigail will be interviewing incredible women, hearing inspiring stories of women from all around the world. I have no doubt that you will find something that will be life-changing for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our future episodes.
So, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Women Thrive podcast. My name is Abigail Rebecca. I am your co-host today. We are going to be speaking about some amazing things today. As we're recording this, it is March 7th, 2025. There is a lot that is going on in the world. There's a lot that you might be worried about, that you might be afraid of. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of energy, whether that's light energy, dark energy, whatever energy you think it is, because everyone has a different opinion about everything, and so they should do. But what I wanted to ask you today, and this is what the question that I want to ask yourself, is when things seem dark, when life isn't going as brilliantly as you would want it to be, when life sort of throws challenges at you, how do you find that love? How do you reposition your view of things and really put your mind to the love, the joy, the abundance, when very often it might feel that things are happening a little bit out of your control? So it's almost like things are happening around you, things are happening to you, and maybe you feel like you've lost a little bit control over it, or there's no way out. This is what we're going to be talking about today. We are joined by the most amazing woman. She's one of our speakers on our Women Thrive podcast. We're so honored to have her. I love her story. I remember the first time I ever met her and she shared her story with me. It's just amazing. And you will see why we are speaking about what I just spoke about on the top end of this podcast, because her story, she really has so much real life experience of finding the love, finding the peace in the tragedy. So I would really love to invite on Molly Phonpadith, and she's going to correct me now. She's the founder and CEO of SOAR Community Network. She helps leaders build compassionate, cohesive, and collaborative teams and organizational cultures that improve employee engagement and create positive social impact. As a certified talent optimization leader and a DEIB consultant, she is an experienced facilitator and strategy for government agencies, businesses, nonprofits, and social enterprises. Molly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It is absolutely okay, Abigail. I get that all the time. It's Mali Phonpadith, and I'm delighted to be here. I think it's such a fitting moment in time and history to be gathering for the Women's Summit, but just to also open up the conversation of how to navigate these big world challenges as an individual, as a human. How do we navigate all of this to still thrive and contribute to society in a meaningful way?
Yeah, Molly, I just mentioned there briefly about the when we met, and I heard your story, and I've heard parts of your story a few times now, and I know that we're going to hear much more about it as well when you are a speaker on the Women Thrive Summit. But why are we speaking about this today? Why are you so passionate about it? I'd really sort of like to understand your background and how you came to be what you're doing now and this beautiful work that you bring to the world.
Thank you, Abigail. I was born in war-torn Laos in the mid 1970s when the war was officially, quote unquote, over for the rest of the world. It was just beginning. in my homeland of Laos, the civil unrest. And my father, who worked for the old government as a social worker, but his name was on the list as a government worker, he was blacklisted. All to say, he was captured, imprisoned, he found a way to escape. And after the escape, he worked really hard through secret telegrams. We did not have cell phones back then, obviously, but it took a few years for him to communicate with folks on the other side of the Mekong in Thailand, relatives of ours, friends of his, that were able to help us orchestrate the escape of six and a half individuals. My mother was 7 months pregnant when we escaped with my brother, and we fled in the middle of the night on a little boat that led us to Thailand. And after 2 weeks of kind of looking at routines of how the refugee camps were being guarded, my parents' relatives were able to come up with a way to slowly dig underneath these barbed wire fence to get in because those refugee camps were overrun and we couldn't, they weren't taking anybody else. So all that to say, we were able to get into the refugee camp, crawling under barbed wire fences. Once we were there, we were protected, and we made our way eventually to the United States of America. And what that experience taught me as a young person was that even in the midst of darkness, through the unknown on that tiny little boat where we were all given little pieces of sleeping pills so that we couldn't cry, so that the soldiers couldn't hear us, and you can imagine what might have happened. It was moments like that in my life, even as a young person, recognize that when there's darkness and there's places of the unknown we're going, that we have to have trust and faith and belief that moving forward is the only way towards something better, even if we don't know. And that's how my father saw that. It's like, I don't know if where we're going is worse or better, but we have to move and we have to trust that it's going to be better. And so that's kind of been embedded in me. And why this work is so important in terms of the work I do today with developing more compassionate, empathetic leaders is if it weren't for the compassionate souls at the refugee camp, my father's friends who helped us escape, the church that eventually sponsored my family on a tie-breaking vote, by the way, to support 7 people from the other side of the world. Those compassionate souls, if they didn't exist, I wouldn't be alive, possibly, and I certainly wouldn't be thriving in this world in this way. And so all of those life lessons have really shaped or gifted me with my purpose in life, which is to create more souls like that because the world needs it. I needed it. So imagine if I'm now able to give back and teach empathy and compassion in the workplace, outside the workplace. This world, I still believe, have a lot of hope that it can be a better place. It just goes through its ebbs and flows. And right now, we're going through that.
Molly, thank you so much for sharing your story. Every time I hear it, it's like a movie, right? I mean, I can't even imagine how you must have been feeling, your parents. And there was something really interesting that you shared actually before we started to record. And you said that even in like the most scariest circumstances with all this pressure, all this worry, fear that your parents were going through, all the upheaval, they still, when they came home, were there with you and being parents and making you feel safe. And that really struck me, what you shared. That must have taken such courage from them to be able to kind of just focus on that instead of the fear.
Well, I know that the fear was overwhelming for them. We witnessed some of the stress and the struggle at home, but they tried very hard to hide it. They really did. And they made a conscious decision as parents to work all of the things that they were going through out on their own in their own way, whether it's through meditation or throwing themselves into my father, his garden, right? And allowed it to be where when we were interacting with our parents, we knew as young children, and in many ways, we started parenting our parents because they didn't speak any English. We went to school and we learned English. We came home and I taught my grandmother a little bit of English by reading her Cat in the Hat and watching Sesame Street, those types of programs here in the US that we had. But they tried very hard to, when we were together, to be as positive and as hopeful, as uplifting as possible, because they knew that mentally, emotionally, it was better for them to not pass on all of that fear and anxiety because we had a new start, right? They could create that new start for us. So I believe that they were very mindful. And coming back to the work that we do today, it is about making that very sometimes difficult decision to be mindful about how we want to show up in the world, even in the midst of our processing our pains, our turmoils, our fear. And that was a lesson also that they shared with me is that it doesn't mean that you don't process your fears and your pains. It just means that when you have to show up for others, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? How do you want to create and shape a future for a community, a society for your children? And it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of emotional strength to make those intentional steps.
Mm. I really want to speak to you about fear in a minute. And obviously, everyone's interpretation of fear is different. I think listening to a story like yours puts many things into perspective because I talk a lot within my work about standing in the fire, fighting through the fear, like feel the fear and do it anyway. And if we want to start comparing maybe that version of fear with everything that you've been through and your parents went through, I think it's a completely different story. But I'd really love to hear that from you. But you were just talking there about compassion, and I know that part of your work and your mission is to create more compassionate leaders, which is such a great movement. And I truly believe that being compassionate is understanding, like understanding someone else, seeing life and seeing things from somebody else's point of view. And very often we can see situations like refugees as stats, right? The press, the media, government like to present us with stats and facts and figures. But actually, what is so empowering and powerful about your story and many others is that you start to see the humanness in it. And I think very often the humanness is taken out for the benefit of others, for their agenda, for them to pass through whatever laws or get to whatever status they want to get to. But actually, when you start to see these stats and these stories as just human beings wanting to survive or wanting the best for their children, I believe that is where so much compassion can come from. And that's why I love your story so much. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. I love the points that you made, and we'll touch upon fear in a moment, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that connecting on a human level is so essential, and that's where the empathy and compassion comes in, because the world, especially where we are today with technology, is filled with facts and data. The sources matter, though, right? Because anything can be turned into data. But when you start to have real meaningful conversations, when you start to invite people to have a seat at the table and to connect and to look at each other in the eyes or through the virtual, but still being able to truly connect, you start to really hear the emotional aspect of the data, right? It's the human part of the data. And being a child refugee and now here in the US, the part about connecting on a human level has become more and more distant. We have so much input, but we have so much more isolation. We have people feeling more and more lonely. And when you have that going on, that phenomenon going on, you kind of can't help but the brain only focusing on the data, the input, the reels that you see, which to me is still data, until you have real conversations, until you can have healthy debates, which is fine, which is absolutely necessary about what's the state of the world, the state that humans are going through. I think for me, because of my story, it can be a positive or negative because of the state of that we're in. I could be looked at as, oh, another refugee or another immigrant in the US. But I also want people to know that no one truly, as a human being, if you pull away all the politics and everything aside, no one wants to be ripped away from their homeland. No one wants to not have a choice to remain in a place that you have the birthright to remain in and to build a life and to thrive. But when bombs are dropping on you and you have little children like my parents did, and you have absolutely nowhere to go, there's really no choice but to pick up and leave and then have the best prayer and hope that someone in the world has enough love and compassion that can actually tap into a place in their own heart that can say, what if that were me? What would I do? And that's really where we need to get back to. Because, yes, this is all about the two major motivating factors in life, which is fear and love. And when you are faced with fear, my parents chose love in that moment, and loving us was escaping, and loving us was figuring out a way to survive. So we can turn fear but still let that fear be motivated by love. And I think that's the part that's missing. We have all this anger and fear and greed, but we don't go deep in understanding what is it motivated by. And if we can get to a place where we can be motivated by love, we would react differently to those emotions. We would make decisions that are not hurtful and harmful to others because we would tap into a place of love and empathy and compassion that says, but what if that were me?
I really relate to what you're saying, Molly. I always talk about like the love, you've got fear. The opposite of fear is love, vice versa. And to be a true leader, an incredible leader, when you are motivated by fear, all you're thinking about is yourself. When you're motivated by love, you start to think about others. And my message always is to you want to make a difference in this world, you want to be a good person, you want to be like an incredible leader, go and talk to people and connect with people, travel the world, speak to people from different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different cultures, get to know people, speak to your neighbors, be in a diverse community because we can just like stay in these circles where we don't go anywhere, we don't travel, we don't see the world, we form an opinion. And sometimes the unknown can be really fearful. I could just talk about this forever and get on my soapbox about it, but let's talk about love. Let's talk about what you were just saying about that you can be in that fear state, but then you can choose to step into love. How on earth do you do that if you are fight or flight, everything's activated, like it's a really frightening position, whether bombs are being dropped on you or you haven't got enough money to pay the rent that month. Like these are two extremes, two different examples where people might feel fear. Like, how on earth do you get to that state? Can you bring yourself into that state when you can step into that love? I'd really love to hear your point of view on that.
Abigail, I have been through it all. With the war situation, we've talked enough about that today. But also, I have been in situations where we have had no money. I have been broke. I have had that as a part of my trauma or trigger. I have lost a fiance at 27, that tragic loss, and being able to walk through that. I have experienced the loss of a best friend to suicide. I've gone through that. All this to say that it is very difficult when you're in it. Okay. So I don't want to take away from, and I don't want this to be, oh, kumbaya, we can do it.
Mm.
Yes, we can do it. And I have done it. And I want to share and show and teach how, but it is not an easy journey. It's not like, oh, just go meditate, you'll feel better. No, you have to actually force yourself out of bed. The blanket on your body feels like it's iron and it's shut, and you can't even lift the blanket sometimes from the bed to even get out of bed. It is not an easy journey. It is a journey that you have to be intentional about taking. It is a commitment that you have to go someplace deep that you don't even know existed, like this divine trust that this too shall pass. It has to get better than this. There is no place else I can go. It is so dark here. I am feeling almost to the point of done, right? I have never gotten to the point of done, but I've gotten very close. And this is just the truth, okay? And that's what trauma, fear, pain, it does that to us because the body is trying to figure out how to handle all of this massive heaviness, pain, hurt, whatever it is that the brain is truly just trying to make things make sense. Because when you go through all of that, it just doesn't make sense. Why me? Why my family? Why us? All of those things. The journey of getting to that place of love again, that light again, is taking it one single freaking breath at a time. That's it. It's like today, I don't feel like doing crap. And being able to hear that and say, but it's okay. It's that self-compassion that has to be there before even compassion can exist for others. It is the walking through it with grace. It is learning how to love yourself like no one's ever taught you how to love, to make sure that you feel it's normal at every angle of your pain, of your fear, of your hope, that it's all okay. That self-talk, that self-compassion is the only way, Abigail, in my mind, in my own experience, is that is the only starting point that works. If you don't have that self-love or go to that deep place, whether you're spiritual or not, for me, it was a very spiritual walk. I'm not deeply religious at all, but it was spiritual. I had to believe there was something so much greater than me that I will never be able to define, but I had to embody and feel it and trust that this was all happening for a reason that I absolutely hate and I don't understand in this moment, but there's got to be a reason that I'm still here, that I can still draw another breath. And that was my starting point. For every single painful experience I had, that was my starting point. You are okay. You are held. And it had to happen for me. And then obviously having that divine sense of held or protection was essential. That's where it starts. Now, I want to acknowledge that because people can watch this and then they're in the midst of pain and they're going to turn it off and say this is bull crap. And I want to acknowledge that no, this is part of it. Next, when you start to feel, okay, I have the self-love, I have the self-compassion, I know this is going to eventually teach me something that I'll understand right now. Now it's about the physical, the body walking alongside of the brain telling you it's going to be okay. Now you literally have to make sure that your body can follow. You have to make sure that you can even pull yourself out of bed. You have to force yourself to say yes, even when your body, your mind, your spirit says no. You have to go up and take that shower. You have to start driving and being with nature and letting your body move and figuring what it feels like to move from the crawling state of I can't even adjust to this new life to walking again from an emotional standpoint. And then I would also say this took me a long time. I cannot do this alone. I cannot do this alone. I cannot. I need to be okay with crying in public or reaching out to my loved ones or letting my siblings in or my partner, my spouse. I need to be able to alleviate the toxins, emotional, cortisol, all the things that I need to release it so that I can start feeling lighter. I would literally feel like an elephant was sitting on my chest for years with multiple traumas that I've had in my life until I could alleviate and give that elephant a diet, if you will. With more self-love and more community support, the diet became skinnier and lighter, and eventually the elephant went away. And that's the truth of it. And without going to all the different modalities I chose, I sought group therapy. I went to see a counselor myself. I practiced meditation. I started doing EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping, all of those things that would allow the help and the support that I needed outside of myself to get me through each of those incredibly difficult situations.
Yeah, some wonderful tools that you've spoken to there. EFT has helped me a lot as well. There's some wonderful resources out there, but I really love that you were speaking about self-love because I can attest from my personal experiences in life, the more I love myself, the more I trust myself. And that trust, when you lose your trust in the world, when you lose your trust in others, if you can at least trust yourself, trust that you are capable of bringing yourself through whatever that might look like, that is an incredibly powerful tool to have. And I'm so glad that you spoke about that. And this thing that a lot of us seem to carry around, not asking for help and wanting to be capable and put together. And you were talking about crying in public. I was speaking to another one of our speakers the other day about it. She was telling her story and she was like, I never used to cry in public. And it's incredible, isn't it, really, that these are the things that we feel that we've been brought up with to be resilient, to be respected, to be dynamic. But actually, these are the very things that can hold us back from really stepping into our true success and abundance.
We've been taught to care about what the world thinks of who we are versus just simply uncovering who we are at a deeper soul level and showing up with how we're designed to be for the world. We've been taught to not do this and do that because society tells us being a woman of color, being whatever, Asian, all these labels and titles, when in essence, all of us have a soul that has none of those things defined, right? Like the soul of who we are. We just came in the embodiment of this vessel, this physical
Yeah.
vessel, but the soul is the soul. And part of the work that we do, part of my love and my passion in life, whether it's through business or not, just being everyday interactions with relationships I have, is to see people truly at the soul level. I have been able to get really good at that over the last few years. Once I started to truly love and see myself, including all my flaws, and forgiving myself for the silly things I did or the mistakes I made when I was at my most insecure. I have to release all of that because then I can't step into who I really truly was created to be because society has shaped me too and has put layers on my soul and stripped some parts of my soul and just rebuilding it and then leading with that has been a journey on its own. And we can have a whole series on that. But once you know that I don't have to accept all the identities the world and society has put on me and just simply be the soul that I am, that is where I can actually connect with you and look in your eyes, Abigail, and see your soul, not the exterior only. Of course, we're not blind. That is a part of who you are in this particular context, in this physical form, in this plane. But I don't focus on that anymore. I focus on your soul. Who are you? What is your light? Where do you want, who do you want to be in this world? How can I help create that? How can I help you manifest that? What relationships do you need? What resources do you need? That's where I want to be able to get all of the people we serve to be at the level where they see each other that way. And I feel like if we can get there, I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime. The world is just feels so, it's insurmountable right now. But this is the only thing that I know my soul was made to do. And this is the only thing I'm going to double down on is to create even more opportunities for love to break through the pain, for compassion and empathy to rise above all this greed and anger. That's the only option I have. And it may feel naive or maybe even sound naive to others, but I'm not built any other way than to do it this way, than to have conversations that say, I won't take away your pain. I can't. I'm not you. I won't take away your anger or your fear. I want to understand it. And what I can do is hopefully have a conversation that will help you at least receive my perception, my perspective, and have meaningful relationship built on that foundation and grow together to try and form that understanding. And I feel like if we can't do that, then game's already over. Game
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. I mean, there will be maybe some people that will be watching this and listening to this that don't believe in that point of view and think that it's a little bit missing the mark of reality and all of that. But at the end of the day, I believe that we can make a decision about how we're going to go about life and how we view life. And I always think, I mean, it's always difficult in the moment,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
what always really helps me through every difficult situation is like, where's the gift? Because there's always a gift in the pain. I always say that the breakthroughs come after the breakdown. I have to break down that part of myself needs to die before I can actually rebirth into something else. And yes, it's like horrible, like it's not a nice experience when you're in it, but actually that is part of the evolution. And I choose to believe that because that enriches my life. It makes me feel a much more abundant person. And it also helps me with my relationships as well to attract all the things that I want to attract into my life. So I'm always like going for that higher frequency. And we can all choose at what frequency we want to vibrate in. But I'm vibrating at that frequency because when I feel good things happen to me. So I completely get what you're saying and agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, Abigail, one thing that you mentioned that was really interesting, and I get this all the time, is how can you be so optimistic and hopeful? The world feels like it is falling apart, and at least the majority of the world might feel like it's okay. We sometimes might feel the minority, we as in like these value sets that we believe in, compassion, love, right? But I will say this, it is harder, not easier to operate from a place of compassion and love when we have what we have right now in society. And so it is not soft, it is not weak to decide to be compassionate, to decide to figure out a way to shift minds, to operate more from a place of hope and love and optimism. It is hard, okay, to be getting up every day saying, let's go have a good fight today and let's bring love to the table, right? Because we have seen fairy tales and we have seen all these other things that define love as being fluffy and soft and feel good.
Yeah,
Love is freaking warrior crap, right? Love
yeah,
is warrior stuff. And we need to call upon all of us who are in so much angst right now, wanting to activate, wanting to make a difference. We can do all of that. We can channel all of that energy, but we have to lead from love because that's a part of the equation that will change, like swing the pendulum back, right? Because when you add oil to the fire gets bigger and there's more destruction. Okay. Now people can argue different metaphors, but you've got to find a way to combat the fire. And it's got to be a different substance. And for me right now, with everything that's going on, we have to have more compassionate conversations. We have to listen to the anger, appreciate the perspective, and try and understand it, even if we don't want to, because we're just so angry that people don't get it, right? But they're never going to get it if we don't find a new way to connect,
yeah,
create a different type of conversation or avenue to bridge this. There's no other option for us but to bridge it somehow. Otherwise, it's all going to burn down, right?
Yeah.
So we have to figure this out and we have to be intentional about it. We have to lead with love in a way that is warrior-like, that we have to really channel that part of us and not just feel like love is kumbaya and sitting by the fire. We need moments of that because we need moments to refuel, reset, think clearly. But then we got to go out and we got to make things happen. And you don't have to post it on social media. I always tell people, you don't have to be loud about it. Just go do the work.
Yeah. Be
Go do
it.
the work.
Yeah. Molly, great way to end it there. So good. Love is warrior, right? Be it. We are so excited to have you speak at the Women Thrive Summit that as we are recording this is only a couple of weeks away. What are you most looking forward to about the summit? And tell us a little bit. I know you mentioned at the beginning, but just a little bit about what you're speaking about as well. What can we expect to from your talk?
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I'm really excited for the summit because the caliber of women and humans that have come together, and not just for this year's summit, but just watching all of the collective energy that you have all created has been just allows a space where you don't feel so alone in the world. As a woman, just as a human being, because we're in a place where we can share authentically all the experiences that these women have gone through and are going through and are willing to show up and be vulnerable and share because we know that we're always going to be stronger and better together when we have shared values, shared stories, that we don't feel alone. That's one thing. What I'm most looking forward to is learning. I continue to learn from all these brilliant souls, life lessons that I may have never experienced, but I can somehow tap into and help enrich my own empathy bucket, if you will, collecting all of the ways and the perspectives of women around the world that enriches my life and enriches my mind and my heart and the way of seeing things. In terms of the topic itself, it is going to be kind of along the same lines here today, but more about resilience. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the journey from that refugee child into becoming this entrepreneur, finding my voice. How do you do that? And being able to discover what is truly yours to do in the world and go forth with confidence to do so. So that's what it's going to be about, and I'm really excited to share.
We are so excited to hear and watch your talk. Molly, it's just been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. If people want to find out more about you and your work, where's the best place to find you?
Well, you can type in my name, Mali Pompadit, because I don't think there's any other Mali Pompadits in the world, and you can find all my social platforms. The best place is going to be on our website. There are links to contact me directly there, but it's SOAR, SOAR, communitynetwork.com. SOARcommunitynetwork.com.
Wonderful. Be sure to go and check out Molly. You can register for the summit down below. We are very excited to have Molly and all of our speakers. Over 50 speakers are going to be speaking on our week-long summit. Come join us, come listen, get some inspiration, and especially get connected with Molly and come watch her talk. Molly, it's just been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming and sharing your story and being with us today.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you to the community.
We appreciate you so much as well. It's just been an absolute pleasure having you with us for the last year. Thank you for saying yes and coming and speaking on the stage. Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, for listening. Has this struck a chord with you? I'm sure that it has. We'd really love to hear your point of view, your take on it. And you can reach out to Marley directly. You can contact us here at Women Thrive. We are always open to conversations that expand us, right? And that connect us as a community with a common cause and shared values. So we are very much looking forward to opening the conversations around this as well. And we hope you tune in to the next episode. There'll be one coming along very shortly. Thank you, Marley. Thank you for watching, everyone. And we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Women Thrive podcast. If you found today's episode empowering and inspiring, be sure to subscribe and follow us. Better yet, leave a review and share it with others. We're committed to bringing you more stories that will empower and inspire you on your own journey. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pursuing your dreams.